The project came about through Tony Baker at Ferris. He is part of the Mecosta County Reads group, and he mentioned that there was this program at the Grand Rapids Area Museum. So we went down to Grand Rapids and they showed us everything, and then they handed it to us and said, have at it. So that was really wonderful of them.
The Grand Rapids Art Museum, about 6 or 7 years ago, created this language artists program, which is what we're duplicating here. And all third graders are engaged in this curriculum that engages children to see art, to learn how artists talk about art, and then how it connects to literacy, which I never really thought about.
As an artist myself, I think that learning literacy through art is a very natural fit. I view art as a visual language.
I definitely think that art and literacy go together. I feel like they can complement each other because when you read something, you come up with what you think you're reading about in your mind. You can like picture and kind of visualize it. But then when you go and look at some art, you can like see it come to life. So I think it's a really cool connection.
The first visit is to the art gallery. They go in these stations. The children learn to talk about what the artist has drawn or has painted. What is the artist trying to say? What are the animals doing? Where do the animals live? What's happening to the animal? And just really thinking about how artists think about telling a story. There's a great piece in there where there's an abstract painting about a bear, and there's a painting of that bear that looks very realistic, almost like a photo. And so the kids are asked to compare these two paintings.
I really like the second picture because it was like, it means different things than just bears and fish and birds.
Students then go to Card Wildlife, which has animals from all over the world. And the task of the students for their writing project that will happen later on is the student has to create their own animal by combining two animals.
A derny, so it's gonna basically be like a deer with a short tail and big ears.
So they use the Card Wildlife to kind of imagine the two animals and to learn a little bit about the habitat.
I learned a lot of new things about horns and art and like camouflage of different animals, and I really enjoyed it.
The second part of the project is they go to Big Rapids Community Library, where the library staff there, and Lauren Morin, who is the director of the library, teaches them how to use books to learn about the animals and the habitat, and then also they use a computer learning program.
It allows the third graders to look at art through the lens of creating their own piece of artwork and discuss it, and then write a story about an animal that they create.
Okay, I want to like make a snake that has like legs, and also like kind of want it to have like 4 fangs, like since the snake already has fangs.
The third part will be Heidi Canali, the arts education coordinator at Artworks, will visit each of those classrooms and will teach the children how to draw these animals and to create a habitat.
This project is teaching kids a different way to look at language and at art at the same time. I think that learning through art is a beautiful thing. It really can bring about an understanding that just learning from a textbook can't give you. In our 4th grade and 8th grade MSEP testing, it showed that less than half of those students were proficient in reading and writing. And then the 11th graders in the county who took their college readiness exams, less than half of those were proficient in reading and writing, just getting ready to go out of high school.
In 4th grade, students have to read to learn. It's completely different than learning to read. If you can't read, you cannot read to learn. And so what we are learning is that a lot of the reading skills and literacy skills are very challenged, not just in Mecosta County, but in our region.
early literacy is definitely a concern, and so then that carries over when students get older. And so we're worried about just the language students have when they come into school, so oral language, and then when they get into school, if they're lacking some of those oral language skills, that then hurts the students when they're trying to learn how to read, learn how to sound out words, because it's hard to make a connection between a word you're sounding out if you haven't heard the word. And so it kind of has compounded, over time, these problems. And so if you even look at state data, the percent of students proficient in reading like in 3rd grade is quite low. And so I think initiatives like this really assist with that, because it gets students in a real life situation. They're using language when they're out in the community, so it's not just about writing and it's not just about reading, but it's about talking, and they're talking about what they've seen, and they're talking about what they've seen in the area that they've seen it. And so you're putting them in a situation where they all have a common language, and then they can commonly write about that, and the teachers can help with that. So I think that all leads to just a better understanding of language in general when you're connecting it to a real world experience.
A major literacy concern is that there are quite a few adults who have not learned to read at a level that they need to read in today's economy. And so since everything is kind of text oriented, as we move to our phones, the ability to communicate via writing and reading is absolutely essential. That, of course, is caused by literacy not being adequately addressed for children as people grow up.
I think literacy is critical to learning. I mean, in order for our kids to learn beyond going to school, they need to be able to read and to write. We spend a lot of time early on teaching our kids to read and to write, because you go from learning to read to reading to learn at about 3rd grade. And so whether you're in math, whether you're in science, whether you're in social studies or any other subject, you have to be able to read in order to learn. So it's critical for our kids to be able to learn literacy skills early on.
I think it's really easy for kids to slip through if there's not a specialized programming for literacy, because they can graduate not really knowing how to read very well or write very well, and then that's going to hurt them when they're trying to get a job. And that was apparent. We talked to some manufacturers when we were doing this program too, and they have a really hard time when they get to a point where they're asking somebody to take a written test for a job. Even though that person is perfect for the job, they're very good at it, they can't read, it's hard for them to do the job.
I really believe, and this might be a cliche and it's been debated, it takes a village to raise a child. We do as a village. I mean, children that grow up well educated probably had a good village to prepare them for that. And so we have to invest in the village and invest in the children in the village.
The Arts and Literacy project that we're participating with Ferris State and Artworks and the Community Library, it also has something to do with our Mecosta Reads Group. It's an organization of different leaders in the community that have come together to try to raise the awareness of the importance of literacy.
Mecosta County Reads is a group that formed about 3 years ago because they were concerned about the literacy levels that were happening in our area. So the group came together and they looked at all the data they could find and talked about what are some of the causes of this. And then from that we looked at projects that would make sense to help in the community. Because literacy levels aren't just a problem for the schools. This is a whole community. A whole community needs to come around and support our schools and support our families, especially those who struggle with reading, to help improve our literacy.
I love partnering with all of the institutions that are involved in this project. I'm really grateful to Ferris and to Tony Baker for including me, and it was a great opportunity to be a part of this.
Partnering with other institutions has been wonderful. It's a great way to get to know your community and You know, collaborating is the way to get things done. It's hard to do when one organization has such a big idea and a big goal. It's hard to do it by yourself. But when you collaborate with your community, you can make so many things happen. It's our longtime goal to be able to take this throughout the entire intermediate school district and serve all the schools. So for people to get involved, whether they're volunteering, they're donating money, they're donating time, that's just what's going to make this program grow.
Everybody has the same goal in this. We all want students to be literate, we want students to be good readers and to enjoy reading. I think that's the most important part, and all of us have that same goal in mind.
If you are really interested in becoming involved in assisting with this program, there are a number of things that you could look at doing. And so one of them obviously is supporting the final exhibit down at Artworks and taking a look at what we have produced as a community and what our students have learned. But I really believe in books. I believe in providing books to children and families, and if all you do is donate a couple of books or donate to the local library, help with programs that are engaging students in learning about reading and writing and literacy skills, I think that would be a wonderful thing to do.